Hi folks, welcome to today's Coffee and Colossians. It's Tuesday and we are going to consider together Colossians chapter 2 and verse 20. Since you died with Christ to the elemental spiritual forces of this world, why, as though you still belong to the world, do you submit to its rules? Now, before we look at this, I've been looking at this book, reading Herodotus, the Histories, translated by Tom Holland. And I love this bit on page 461, talking about King Xerxes. He passed a Phrygian city called Anua, then a salt lake, and then he came to Colossae, a large Phrygian city. This is where the river Lycus plunges into a chasm. From Colossae, the army continued on its way to where Phrygia borders Lydia, and so on. What I love about that is that's written about 400 or 500 years before Colossians, and it just reminds us that we're dealing with a real place, with real people in real history. And yet what we're talking about here is this principle of dying with Christ. Now, what does that mean? What is he talking about? Since you died with Christ. We'll talk more about the rules of this world, but he says you died to the elemental spiritual forces of this world. Well, dying with Christ is important. Being in Christ is important for Paul. Dying with Christ is important. Since then, you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. You died with Christ on the cross. You're raised with Christ in the ascension to him. Perhaps also chapter 1, verse 27, where God has made known among the Gentiles the glorious riches of this mystery, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. What does that mean, dying with Christ? It means death to the voices of this world. You know, we listen to many different voices, and we're saying, no, these are dead to me. I like the story of the woman who said, well, I ain't actually died to sin, but I did feel kind of faint once. It's kind of, we've been set free from a worldly understanding. As Paul explained to the Galatians, we're the children either of the slave woman, Hagar, or we're children of the free woman. And we are to be children of the free woman. Dying with Christ is an indication of who we belong to. It's like being raised with Christ, being resurrected with Christ. So Paul is saying, look, this is dead to you. These spiritual forces are dead to you. These religious rules are dead to you. They no longer bind you. Those fears are dead to you. They no longer bind you. So because you've died, you've got a new life. It's such a radical change, becoming a Christian. We've been set free from all the things that bound us before. Maybe we'll say some more about that tomorrow, the rules of this world, because that is one of the things that we're supposed to have died to. You know, in Corinthians, Paul talks about how except a seed of corn fall into the ground and it dies, that it's not raised. When we give our lives to follow Jesus, we are dying to ourselves, if you like. We're dying to the old way. And we've been raised to the new way of life. That's what he was speaking about earlier in terms of the baptism. You were buried with him in baptism, and you were raised through your faith in the working of God who raised him from the dead. So, beautiful day again here, and it's just a beautiful thing to know that in Christ we are dead to all the things that would dominate us in this world, and even in our own hearts, and we've been set free. May you know that freedom. God bless you, and see you tomorrow. Bye.